We've got the Rangers, we've got the Red Wings, we've got a heavyweight Eastern Conference matchup, and we've got a very special crossover edition between Locked On New York Rangers and Locked On Detroit Red Wings.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back, Rangers fans, Red Wing fans, general hockey fans, to a very special crossover edition of Locked On New York Rangers. This is John Chick with Locked On New York Rangers, joined by my good friends Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley of Locked On Detroit Red Wings. Fellas, we were talking off air just a second ago. You know, both teams off to a nice start. We'll get to that in just a second, but I should mention today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's a $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And so, yeah, really a strong start to the season for both the Rangers and the Red Wings, and a very highly anticipated matchup between the two teams here. And it's crazy, guys. You know, the Red Wings, seeing where they were just a few years ago, where they were, you know, basically a historically bad team. I don't believe that was even 5 years ago. And then slowly but surely kind of putting the pieces back together, acquiring all these draft picks. And I mean, all of a sudden, I mean, they're looking like they could be a contender again. So first and foremost, I mean, what's it been like watching them go from that transformation to being just really bad to, wow, this team could actually like do some damage this year?
Slow and painful for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, the 2020 year from here, every year has been incrementally better. They acquire new players to make the roster a little bit better year in and year out. But, you know, year in and year out, it was still kind of painful seasons. This is really, I guess you could say last year, you finally started to see a little bit the fruits of that labor really start to come out. Obviously, Seider run the Calder 2 years ago, but you got another year under their belt last year. And now this year with the extra additions they made, what was Scotty? We've talked about it, like 11 whole additions they've made. Obviously,
11 free agents, not even including DeBrincat. Yeah.
And then they traded for DeBrincat and Jeff Petrie. So almost an entirely new roster in the second year of Derek Lalonde. So there were, I mean, it's been really nice this year off to the hot start, a little bit of a cold stretch in the mix there as well. But, you know, this team finally, for once, looks like it can be a competitive team, and not just a competitive team every now and again, but a competitive team night in and night out. And it's been a really nice change of pace from where we've been the last few years.
Yeah, the fall was definitely very, very hard for a lot of people. Obviously, the like unparalleled success the organization had, you know, leading up to like the start of the rebuild was definitely it was a heck of a change of pace for a lot of people. But yeah, you know, it's been like slow and steady wins the race kind of thing. Not that it's taken a long time, right? I mean, that was what, 4 seasons ago was the really, really bad year. So it's not that it's taken, you know, much longer than people expected either. But it's one of those things where, like, Yzerman has made very clear he's not just trying to make the NHL level better, he's trying to make the entire organization better. And so there hasn't been any like jumping the gun on like a big trade to trade a prospect away, at least. Like, obviously the DeBrincat trade happened, but even that was, you know, kind of less than I think what people expected his market to be. And so yeah, man, it's been a really, really fun season, obviously. And I think people are like cautiously optimistic, I think is how I would describe the fan base right now. I don't think anybody's like gung ho, like, oh yeah, like the Wings are gonna like steamroll their way into the postseason, but people are like, oh, like we might be back again.
We're so back? ?
Right.
Are we back?
I love it. Yeah, it was kind of the same deal with the Rangers 2 years ago. You know, they got off to that really nice start, and we're kind of wondering, like, is this sustainable? Like, can Igor really save our bacon every single night? Because that's kind of how they were winning games 2 years ago. But obviously, you know, really good year 2 years ago. Good year last year, minus the early playoff exit. And I think at this point, there's more confidence in this Ranger team. But I want to ask you guys as well about the most recent Red Wings game. Obviously, a huge win, down 2-0 against the Bruins, and they're off to a fantastic start again. Tie it, go down 3-2, you tie it again, you get up 5-3, you hang on for the 5-4 win. Statement victory there for the Red Wings, was it not? I mean, what was it like to see them come back and win that game?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would call it a statement victory. I think that was the name of our episode. Yeah, statement victory for the Detroit Red Wings. Yeah, man. We talked about it a lot on the episode yesterday, but This was a game in which for a while now, like Brian and I have been talking about how this team's winning games and they've gotten off to a good start, but a lot of that is due to just like an ungodly success from the power play so far early on in the season, and especially the first 5 or 6 games of the year. And then, once the power play stopped producing, they had been getting outplayed at even strength and at 5-on-5 for a majority of the season up to that point. And they straight up went toe to toe with the Bruins despite being, down 2 goals at one point in the game, and were able to claw their way back and win and probably did outplay the Bruins at 5-on-5. And so I think that it was more than just the win. It was how they won that I think was the biggest statement in that game, to be honest.
Well, and also to add on to that, the ability the team showed to adjust. I mean, as Scotty stated, the team saw a lot of success. They had a 5-game winning streak based solely on, as he put, and got unsustainably high power play and unsustainably high shooting percentage as well, while getting dominated at 5-on-5 almost every single game. Once the teams figured that out, they went into a dry spell, lost 3 in a row, won 1 in overtime, then lost another one. So they went, 1-4 in that stretch where their only one win was an overtime win. And so they went into the Bruins with a lot to prove, and they made powerful adjustments to every line outside the top line, and then on the power play as well, replacing Moritz Seider on the first power play unit with Lucas Raymond, shifting Shane Gostisbehere to the point rather than have him on the half wall. And Lucas Raymond got rewarded with a power play goal, and Jake Wallman on power play unit 2 with an assist from Moritz Seider, who got bumped to power play unit 2, got a one-timer goal. And those were the 2 goals that tied that game back up in the second period for the Detroit Red Wings. So yeah, I just echo Scotty's sentiments. It was a statement win, and it proved a lot for Red Wings fans, because it was also their most complete game of the season. They didn't just show up on the power play at 5-on-5. If you look at the metrics, they had the edge in Corsi, Fenwick, expected goals for, whatever you want to call it, for the entirety of the game.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's certainly a promising start for the Red Wings, and things looking up for both of these teams. I'm wondering, what do you think is the biggest surprise for the Red Wings so far this season? Good or bad? I would imagine probably good, because they are off to a really nice start here. But any individual player or any storyline that's kind of brewing right now that surprised you in a good way?
Oh, it's such a good question. So I don't know if you can count Alex DeBrincat's start as a surprise or Dylan Larkin's start as a surprise. I mean, these are 2 guys that you hoped when you acquired DeBrincat, you'd put them on the first line and they would start clicking together. And they have. Obviously, Larkin out to the fastest start he's ever had to a season, 17 points in 12 games, 5 goals, 12 assists. Bulk of those assists come from feeding the puck to Alex DeBrincat, who's got 14 points in 12 games. He's got a little bit of a dry spell the last 4 games, I believe, in terms of goals, hitting a lot of posts, getting a lot of opportunities, still in the right spot. His metrics are still very good. He just has been a little bit snake bit in the last few games. Both those guys are off to hot starts. I would almost argue that for me personally, the biggest surprise would be the power play, like we were just stating, because we expected it to be better. I think they were 17th in the league last year. We wanted them to be top 15. We didn't expect them to be 4th is where they're at now, maybe 6th after these last couple games. But Joe Veleno has been such a revelation this season. He got kind of a prove it contract, 1-year RFA contract that was not a lot of money because he had a pretty down year last year. And then he's come out this season and he's been tearing it up. In fact, last game, he even got a promotion to the second line as a winger. Normally he plays center, but they needed somebody to play winger. And he looked not out of place. He played on every single line in that game. That says a lot. He played second, third, fourth, and even took a shift at center on the top line when Larkin had to go down the tunnel temporarily after he took a spill on the board. So Joe Veleno, in my eyes, is the storyline for me, but that's because I'm biased and I love my dogs. I like my guys who aren't going to get a ton of media attention.
So now that Brian just took 3 different things for his answer, I'll take something left. I think that, going into the season, Brian and I had the goalie situation as the biggest question mark for this team. And while the Wings haven't gotten Bruins level goaltending or Rangers level goaltending for that matter, level of production from Reimer and Husso, they've been solid. And for a situation last year that was so brutal from February to the end of the season, to get off to this start, not only in the win column, but to kind of rejuvenate the fan base's again, like optimism, I guess, or confidence in Ville Husso. And like Reimer has only played in 3 or 4 games, and pretty much all of them this year. He's been really solid. So I think that's one for me where that was, again, like Brian and I said, that was our biggest question mark going into the year right before opening night. And it hasn't been an overwhelming success, but it hasn't been like a storyline either, which is like very much good enough for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually have a question for you guys about the goaltending situation there, because, there's kind of a little bit of a storyline brewing, or at least to me, it looks that way, kind of as an outsider looking in. And we'll definitely get to that in just a second. But first, I want to let everybody know today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers and Locked On Detroit Red Wings is brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than right now to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And something that my friend does, he's a big New York Giants fan, he tends to have this strategy where he'll actually bet against the Giants because he tells me that way he either wins his bet or his favorite football team wins their game.
The emotional hedge, baby. It's a genius play.
That's it. That's what you got to do. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, and so Brian, Scotty, and I would just like to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On Rangers and Locked On Detroit Red Wings your first listens every day. We are all free and available on all platforms. And to keep everything rolling, guys, I mentioned just a second ago, I want to ask you about the goalie situation there, because right now, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of early, obviously a little bit of a small sample size, but I'm looking at the stats, and Husso's played in 8 games. He's got a goals against of 337, and then Reimer has played 4 games. He's got a goals against of 152. Small sample size. Reimer's quite a bit older than Husso as well. I believe Reimer's like 35-ish. But I mean, what do you guys think? Is there any kind of a goalie controversy there, or do they just go hot hand? Just any thoughts on how they roll with their goalies going forward?
Well, I think currently, I still think it's Husso's job to lose. I do think that if the season goes along and the numbers are, I mean, that's like obviously unsustainably different, right? Difference in goals against there, especially with Reimer. But I do expect, water to find its level with Reimer a little bit. And going into the year, like the coaching staff in the front office was just very confident, and this is going to be Husso's net, and anybody we bring in is going to be a backup. We also are carrying 3 goalies and have all season. So there's a little bit of needed depth there. But I think for right now, like, again, the biggest storyline last year in net was Husso really hit a wall and just like collapsed in the second half of the season because he was playing every game, like back-to-backs, like literally every game, because we didn't have a backup. We like didn't have one, right? So I think just having like a solidified, little bit more of a quote-unquote workhorse in Husso, who's going to play most nights in that, and then if you can have Reimer play, that 30-ish, maybe even more, 30-plus games this year of good hockey, then I think the Wings are gladly going to take that.
Yeah, to add on to that, I mean, Ville Husso has been serviceable, and he does have a penchant. My biggest criticism of Ville Husso, and Scotty and I are like pretty staunch goalie defenders. That's been our big kind of shtick, is we try not to blame the goalies because, there's 5 other players on the ice ahead of them. But Ville Husso has a penchant for giving up major softies at least once a game. And we had the most egregious one in that game against the Boston Bruins, where he went to cover the puck and somehow just lost control of it. No, there was no pressure on him whatsoever. And James Van Riemsdyk buried it, and the Bruins got out to an early 1-0 lead. And things like that can kill you. They really can. But then he'll just, outside of that one softie, be lights out for the rest of the game. So, I mean, you look at his save percentage, and it's like 896 or something along those lines, sub 900 right now. You take one of those softies away every game, and he's a fantastic goalie. But it's just that one softie tends to kill him. And especially when you play on a team that defensively is better, but still not that great. you got to be locked down in the net. And he does have a goal saved above expected of 3.29. So he's still making more saves than is expected of a goalie facing as many shots and high danger chances on any given night than he normally does. But that one softy night can kill you. But even with that being said, James Reimer, given his age, I don't think is capable of really taking on that starter role. I think
a rough year last
probably.
year.
Yeah, he had a rough year last year with the San Jose Sharks. I think that had more to do with the San Jose Sharks than it did with James Reimer. But
that isn't clear.
I just think that James Reimer is in a perfect role right now as a backup, and that if they try to overextend him, you're going to see that save percentage start to crumble very fast.
It's interesting to hear you guys say that with Reimer, because honestly, it reminds me very much of what's going on with the Rangers right now. Jonathan Quick, obviously the new backup goalie for this season. And pretty much probably since the first time this guy ever put on goalie pads, he's not used to being the backup. But at this point in his career, he is 38 years old, and we've seen him play very well so far. He came in relief in one game, stopped all 9 shots, had a shutout. His first 3 appearances combined, I believe it was like 57 saves on 58 shots, something along those lines. And even in this most recent game against Minnesota, he gave up 4 goals and they lost in the shootout. But, man, he made some really nice saves. So I think it's kind of a similar situation with Reimer as you have with Quick here, where, they probably can't do it as like the workhorse anymore. But as a backup, maybe they can still get it done. I know a lot of Ranger fans were concerned about Quick in the preseason. But he's turned back the clock, at least so far this season. And with Igor dealing with a minor injury, what's believed to be a minor injury, it looks like you guys might be facing Quick for this game. So who's going to be in net for you guys? Do you have any inkling there?
I would imagine Husso.
Okay.
I guess he did just play the last game, but they've usually, the Reimer spacing has been like a once a week thing, and it's usually like our weakest opponent. I don't know. I would lean Husso just like by default because he has been like the workhorse. But I will probably see a report on that either later today or be like before the game tomorrow.
I agree with Scotty too. Probably going to be Husso because you have they have play Montreal and Columbus next Thursday and Saturday respectively. The only reasoning I could maybe see for putting Reimer in net is this is a road game and you put Husso in net for the 2 home games this weekend, Thursday and Saturday.
Reimer's already played Columbus once this year though and did well. So
yeah, so that's a great point by Scotty. That's probably a spot we're going to see. It's been pretty much. You see Husso for 3 or 4 games in a row, and then you get a Reimer start, and then Alex Lyon just rides the pine for the poor guy. He can't.
Lyon has dressed once, and he was a backup this season.
They want to
literally dressed one time, and yeah, he didn't see any ice time. So.
I saw him on Cap Friendly, but then I went to the Red Wings stat page, and he has no stats. His name isn't even there because he hasn't been in a game yet. So hopefully he gets into one sooner or later.
That's because the Tampa Bay Lightning don't have a goalie right now, and so the Red Wings don't want to put Lyon on waivers to send him down to the AHL and risk losing him to a division rival.
That you might be onto something there. Yeah, that there could be some truth to that. I got to ask you about Lucas Raymond. Something that's always going to come up with Rangers and Red Wings, I think, is the Lafreniere versus Lucas Raymond. I even threw it into the graphic there. So, I mean, it's crazy because that was the year coming off of that really bad season that we talked about, and everybody's thinking like, well, they'll at least get probably the first pick. And they end up picking 4th, which I think was as far down as they could go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was believed to be the 20-player draft. That was the Laffy, Stutzla, and
Byfield.
Yeah.
It went Laffy, Byfield,
Stutzla,
and then Raymond. But it's kind of working out in your favor because, I mean, Raymond's done more. He's put up more points, certainly, than Lafreniere and Byfield. I mean, Stutzla's off to a nice start there. But
yeah, Stutzla's a player.
How about Lucas Raymond, man? 10 points in 12 games to start the season here. What's the ceiling for this guy? And then,
with any player, there's certainly portions of the fan base that I think wish the production was a little bit higher for Raymond. But Brian and I have been pretty big defenders of his so far, and like his career has just been. It's been a little bit up and down, I guess. He had a really solid rookie year, finished, I believe, 4th for the Calder. At one point in the season, was higher on that list even. And then year 2, sophomore slump was thrown around a boatload right after year 2. And a lot of people were questioning like if he was ever going to get big enough to like not get knocked off the puck and he was going to have the size to be able to play in like consistent top 6 NHL minutes even at one point. And he's been playing on this team's top line since like the first week of his NHL career pretty much. So He went in the offseason, and the big storyline was he gained a bunch of weight, and it was all muscle, and everybody was super excited for the season, best shape of his life type of thing. And this series been good, man. The goal scoring, he hasn't been like an elite top end level goal scorer this year, but he's been the best fit by far of anybody they've put on that top line with the Brinkett and Larkin. I guess it's only like two people, I think, but still, like that line has been really, really productive, and Lucas Raymond's on it and getting points, whether they're secondaries or not. And he looks a lot stronger and more confident skating too. So
yeah, and I mean,
are pretty excited at least about this year.
To add on to what Scotty was saying too, like I think a lot of people he was taken 4th overall and he's a winger, so people want him to score like 40 goals, and that's just not the type of player Lucas Raymond is. He's a pass first type of guy, so he might be like a 20-40 guy, 20 goals, in which he scored 20 goals his rookie season, but 40 assists for 60 points. And I mean, that's kind of the perfect thing that this line needs. I mean, Alex DeBrincat is a shooter. Dylan Larkin can do it both. He can pass and he can shoot. So adding just like a pass first guy to that line is like the perfect combination. And he's obviously, like Scotty was just saying, he's been rewarded so far with the primaries and secondaries he's been getting, and the added strength that he has with the whatever report you want to believe, whether it's 9 pounds or 12 pounds that he added, you can see it in that he's a lot harder to knock off the puck. He's getting into the corners. He's coming out of the corners with the puck. He's off to a much better start. Just, I don't think people should ever expect him to be the 40-goal guy people mistakenly think every guy taken in the top 5 should be. If he's getting 60 points with the Red Wings on the top line this season, which is what Scotty and I are hoping he can accomplish, that's a successful season, regardless of how he gets those points. I don't care if it's a goal, a primary, or a secondary. He's been off to definitely a pretty good start. And I know we got to get to a quick break here, but Lafreniere, for what it's worth, at least I don't know what he's done these last few games, but I remember he got off to a kind of a hot start at the very beginning of the season. So maybe on the other side of this break, you can kind of break down how he's been performing lately.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And shall we go ahead and let everybody know about Sleeper here?
Absolutely. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Alex DeBrincat could score 50 goals. Artemi Panarin could score 100 points. The Locked On Red Wings fans, Locked On New York Rangers fans, your team could hoist the Stanley Cup. Hopefully it's the Red Wings. Go Wings. And you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. And all you have to do is pick whether studs like, I mean, I just said it, Artemi Panarin, Adam Fox when he comes back healthy, hopefully, Moritz Seider, Alex Brinkett, Dylan Larkin will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Red Wings fans and Rangers fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can win big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability.
All right, so as for Alexis Lafreniere, I mean, got off to a really nice start this season, racked up 4 goals pretty quickly. Has, slumped a little bit recently. Something that I think that, he's had to adjust to is playing on the right wing. The nice thing this year, and a lot of Ranger fans have been calling for this, Gerard Gallant, for the 2 years that he was here, very seldom wanted to use Lafreniere, Kakko, Hedl in the top 6. They'd always get there for a little while, but just as soon as they were there, they were kind of bumped back down to the third line. And then, there's also some truth to the idea that sometimes young players are more comfortable playing with other young players. And I think at times, the kid line, as it was called, obviously did well for the Rangers. But to start this season, they go with all 3 of those players in the top 6. And you get a second line of Panarin, Hedl, and Lafreniere. And Lafreniere playing on his right wing, it's his off wing, which, at first glance, when he was first called up and people were floating that idea, I didn't really like it because you have somebody that's the top pick in the draft and has all this upside and all this potential. And it's like, do you really want to mess with him by having him change lines, or change sides of the ice rather? It was kind of like, let's make somebody else do that. But honestly, in watching Lafreniere play left wing and right wing over the past few years. I haven't noticed really any kind of a drop off from one side to the other. I think he does just fine with it. And, the point total isn't that high for Lafreniere right now, but I do think overall he's played well. There have been a couple of times where he's got what I've called an unofficial assist, twice where he's been on the forecheck and basically forced somebody into a turnover, making them give the puck right to Artemi Panarin, which is something you do not want to do. And, in those cases, Panarin's been able to score. So, I'm feeling pretty good about Lafreniere so far, and I like the fact that he's gotten some run in the top six, and specifically with Artemi Panarin. I mean, Artemi Panarin can make guys like, Jesper Foss, Colin Blackwell, Barclay Goodrow, he can make them relevant offensive players, and if he can do that, you got to figure he can do a lot of that and more when it comes to Alexis Lafreniere. So, the points aren't there right now, but I'm being patient with Alexis Lafreniere. The one thing, while we're talking about young players is Kakko has been on the top line and has all of 2 points so far this season. And I saw on Twitter earlier today that they're going to basically flip-flop him and Blake Wheeler. Wheeler also off to a slow start with just the 1 point so far. And Pierre Laviolette even said this, and as soon as the move was made, I felt like it was definitely a good idea just because, at a certain point, just try something different, right? There's nothing to lose at this point. Neither guy is exactly setting the world on fire. So I'm all for that change, and hopefully at least one of the two gets going, and hopefully as soon as this matchup against your Red Wings here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I got a question for you too, as well. I was sifting through some metrics earlier today, and I noticed that the New York Rangers, their Corsi for percentage, their Fenwick percentage, their expected goals for percentage, all that jazz is kind of in the 20s for a lot of different spots. Yet the team's out to an 8-2-1 start, something along those lines, which is an incredibly hot start. What has led to, and again, those metrics I was just setting is at 5-on-5. What has led to the early success this team has, despite the fact that when it comes to shot attempts for versus shot attempts against, you're in the lower echelon of the league right now?
It's a little bit of everything. And I think one thing that Ranger fans kind of will get on the team for from time to time is they're not really the best 5v5 team in the league. For all the success they've had over the past couple of years, when you get to the playoffs, you look at 5v5, they're probably at or near the bottom of, the 16 teams that get in. But the flip side of that is they have been outstanding in special teams. I believe right now they're at number 2 in the league in power play success rate. I think they've played 11 games, and I want to say they have a power play goal in 10 out of the 11 games, at least one power play goal in all of those. The penalty killing has been very good. Nick Bonino has been really under the radar addition to the Rangers, but he's been the best penalty killer thus far for the team. So they've been really good there. They've also gotten very good goaltending. Igor's Igor, and Jonathan Quick has kind of over-delivered so far this season. And I think defensively, their defensive structure has been a lot better this season than we've seen in recent years. They recently had a 5-game road trip, and in those 5 games, they gave up a grand total of just 7 goals. So, it really is a little bit of everything. They're getting contributions, up and down the lineup. I don't think there are too many players that you can look at and say, man, this guy's given us less than we were expecting. I would say probably you could say that about Kakko, probably say that about Blake Wheeler. Besides that, I think everybody's kind of at or better than what you were expecting coming into the season. So kind of just a case where it's the sum of all parts, and the Corsi may not be great, but they're doing enough other things well that, they're off to the start that they're off to here.
Yeah, it's a really good, it's going to be a really good special teams battle too when you look at it, because like you said, the Rangers are currently 2nd in the league in power play. The Red Wings are 6th with a 28% completion percentage. And then at penalty kill, I believe the two teams are like neck and neck as well. Red Wings coming at 12th on the penalty kill, and the Rangers are 10th. So just 2 spots separating them in like both categories. I'm really interested to see, it really feels like it might come down to a 5-on-5 battle if that's the case, if both teams, special teams are so good on which team comes out on top, especially if Shesterkin's injured.
Yeah, for sure. And I got to ask you guys, before we wrap up here and call it a day at some point, Alex DeBrincat. So obviously kind of the guy that, of everybody that was going to be available in a trade this offseason, he was kind of the guy. And I feel like it was rumored for a while that he was going to be heading to Detroit, but what was that like kind of following that every day? And then it finally it's a done deal. He's coming to Detroit and now off to a fantastic start with the team. I have his stats written down here somewhere: 9 goals and 5 assists in his first 12 games. So couldn't have started a whole lot better. Am I right?
No, he could not have started a whole lot better. And yes, Brian, month leading up to the trade was so exhausting by the end of it, because it was just every day it was, it's going to be this week, or it's going to be today, or it's going to be tomorrow, and it was just constant. And then it got to the point where, like, then when it actually was like, hey, this is happening, we were like, oh my goodness, I don't even know if I can believe this. Like,
Right.
I don't even want to like go down this like rabbit hole again. But it finally happened. The Wings, pretty much all of Wings fans and alike have. We're really, really pleased with what we gave up for them. Yeah, man, it's been awesome. I think the biggest reason for the whole drama leading up to it too was just like the homecoming aspect of it, and that's certainly been marketed a lot here and nationally as he's gotten off to such a good start. But yeah, man, it's one of those things where not only is it just like, oh, he's a really good player and he's from here. But on top of that, it was this team's biggest need after last season, right? And that has been kind of it's been the perfect like culmination of like hype, because not only do you have like the easily marketable stuff that comes with him, but like a top end goal scorer was pretty comfortably, I think, the biggest thing that the Wings needed after last season, and they got it, and he's produced that. And yeah, it's been awesome. Not only on the power play, which like he's always been a threat to score on the power play, but he's been a real offensive threat and scoring goals at 5-on-5 as well early on, which has been a huge plus. So yeah, everybody's obviously thrilled. And you're right. He could not have gotten off to much of a better start than he has.
The Red Wings haven't had a 40-goal scorer since Marian Hossa in 2009. So getting a shooter who can put the puck in the back of the net was, like Scotty said, definitively the team's biggest need.
Yeah, for sure. And I figure want to go ahead and throw out predictions for tonight. A final score. Anybody to light the score sheet or something like that along those lines. Any kind of predictions you guys want to toss out there?
Well, is it a cop-out to say that this DeBrincat's going to show up on the score sheet? He's been he's been in a dry spell the last few games, like I was saying earlier, hitting some posts, getting a lot of opportunities, but just not burying the puck, and I think he finally breaks through in this one.
Man.
Sorry, I took the easy one, Scotty.
No, that's chill. I'm going to take, give me Daniel Sprong.
You love taking Daniel Sprong.
Give me Daniel Sprong filling up the back of the net at some point this game. I'll take the Wings pretty much only because of the goaltending situation. But these look like two pretty similar teams, man. Like these are two teams that want to improve 5-on-5, but have been really good on special teams and and it's going to be a really fun game. I hope. I'm pretty excited to watch it, just as like a hockey fan, to be honest.
Yeah.
Go ahead. All you.
I was just going to say I allow my Red Wings bias to freely flow here. I'm going to go with Scotty with the Red Wings. I think that big win against the Bruins is going to help them get that ball rolling and get some momentum built. I agree. I do think that overall, even without Adam Fox, because he's out for 4 weeks, something along those lines with his injury.
2 to 4 weeks, yeah. But they put him on LTIR, so he can't return until like November 29th, I think is the date, somewhere around there.
I think talent-wise, the Rangers are definitely a better team. I won't deny that. I mean, it's clear they've made the playoffs and been the top of the division the last few years. But, I mean, momentum's a big deal. And like Scotty said, statistically, these two teams are very close. If the Red Wings can play a very similar game like at 5-on-5 like they did against Boston, I think that they could come out on top. I'd say it'd be a close one. I'd say like 3-2, but let's go Red Wings.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that the Rangers bounce back from their recent defeat. They win this game 4-3. The two defeats they've had earlier this season, they played very well the game following that. So I think something similar can happen here. I think Peter Laviolette's the kind of coach that's going to demand that. I'll say the Rangers get a 4-3 win, little higher scoring than maybe usual. No Igor and no Adam Fox, so maybe there's a couple more goals each way. We'll see how it goes. But I'm also going to say Blake Wheeler gets his first goal of the season, playing on a new line with Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. Maybe he finally breaks through there. Got his first assist the other night. And given that the Rangers always get killed by their former players, Matt Zuccarello had 2 goals and scored in the shootout against them in the last game. I'm going to say for sure Andrew Kaapo is getting a goal for you guys. So I'll put that out there right now.
I'm down. He had his first goal in a while just in the Bruins game, so we'll take it.
Good for him, man. He wasn't here for long, but he quickly became a favorite of Ranger fans, and you kind of knew he was going to be leaving, but it was still a bummer even when it happened. So glad it's working out for you guys.
Yeah.
But okay. So Ranger fans, Red Wing fans, general hockey fans, thank you guys as always for tuning in. And Scotty and Brian will definitely have to do this a little bit later this season.
Yeah,
absolutely, brother.
All right.
Thanks
thank you guys
us,
as always for tuning in.